Hi, everybody out there, and thank you so much for tuning in to Magnify Our Impact. And today I've got an amazing man that I wanted to interview, and he's been really very kind to give me this time because he's still super busy, even though he's succeeded at what I believe to be an extraordinary level. He has been willing to grant me an interview, and I think this is going to be a really special interview for a couple of reasons. Majorly because, what I pick up on and sense, and providing you're willing to, you'll read a lot about Mike in what he's achieved. But he's achieved so much in his life, but also he stays so grounded to his local community, which I think, and I know there's entrepreneurs that have achieved at the level globally that Mike has, that care about where they've come from and born and bred. But you'll see throughout the interview that this is a man that, that has nurtured that to such a degree that he's now so steeped in his community and supports so many hundreds of organizations, both commercially and non-for-profit, in his local area. And that to me says so much about the guy we're about to hear from his values, is to stay true to where he's come from and the people that he surrounds himself with. So Mike, thank you again. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
And, what would be great is to ask you these questions, Mike, and just to really understand two major elements. One is, of course, where you've come from, which I'm going to ask you about in a second, but also what the success has meant to you and how you're sharing it with the community around you and teaching us how to create positive impact in the world through what you do. So if I start with the first piece,
okay,
which is, Mike, just give us a background. And of course, I'd love to hear the story of, your fifth child, as you call it, which is dreams, but also where you are today and what's driven you to give back so much.
Well, Craig, good to talk to you on VE Day. It's all a bit special. We've just had the red arrows flying over.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Everyone's very patriotic today. So fantastic. Even though we've got this coronavirus that we're going to beat. So, yeah, okay. Well, my background, as you've just said, is I suppose most people know me about dreams and founding that and driving that for 20 years. But I like to think I'm not just a one-trick pony, and I've done a bit more than that. And as you say, I like to give a bit back to the community and do things particularly locally in Buckinghamshire. So Dreams was I had various businesses before Dreams. Don't like to talk about them too much because they weren't hugely successful, but they weren't really failures. They weren't big enough to go into liquidation or something. They were just more ideas and little ideas. And I'd design logos and think of a business concept and idea and trial it from home. And I was still working, so I never really committed properly. But eventually when I was 30, I thought, this idea of selling sofa beds, what it was to start with, was a good idea. And it was a bit of a niche, a bit specialist, and it didn't seem too onerous. I had a bit of background with furniture and retail. So that started with sofa bed centres. And then after 3 or 4 stores, we added a new category, which was beds. And then beds were selling more than sofa beds within 6 months. And we changed the name to Dreams, and away we went. So that's how we got started. And it sounds very easy because I always tell people that buying and selling beds, which is all Dreams, where if you're a retailer, all you do is you buy things and you sell them for more than you bought them for. It can't be that difficult. But choosing the right product and marketing them in the right way is obviously what it's about. So yeah, it seems quite easy. We started with 1 store, ended with 200, and I made a lot of money doing that. But actually that process, about the people that you take on the journey with you, and just the mistakes that you can make, the things that you learn, it is really quite a journey and fun. I look back at it with great fondness. And then eventually you feel, well, it's time to exit, and the timing for exiting is obviously critically important, and hopefully I got my timing right. I thought in March 2008, which is just before that financial crash, just sort of weeks before really, and then it's a big revelation in your life. What do you do after that? So it's a big void really. It's a bit like a bereavement. It's positive because you've got a lot of money, but you've got nothing to do. And then you look to do new things, and that's a new journey.
So, you know, you explain that in a very humble way, Mike, because you just talk about it like, yeah, you know, I had some small businesses and you were experimenting, and then you started the soap bed company, and then dreams, you know, for 20 years. And the way that you say, you know, we went from a few stores to 200 stores, and I mean, it's a massive operation. But you know, before we get into that, because, you know, your success in that, and I'm sure your failures, you know, if we can call them that, drove you on, and the mistakes we all make as human beings. But I obviously want to get into, you know, your advice as to how to scale and leverage, because this is what this is all about, is what is for us to be able to take, you know, a charity or a social enterprise or community interest company, or even a commercial business, for the ladies and gentlemen that are listening to this, and how do you go from where they are now to really scale something. But before we get into that, I'd love to find out, there's something special in people who, you know, it's probably lots of things, but there's something special about people, I think, that start off and have the grit and determination, the persistence to be able to grow something like you have, of the scale that it is, but also then be for me, emotionally intelligent enough to say, okay, well, now it's time to give to everybody else around me. But where did this all start from? So if I ask this question, when you were a kid, or when you were just growing up, or you were in your young 20s, what do you think has given you this determination and never give up? I know that one, you know, on your website is talking about, if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything. So where did this come from?
Well,
were you born with it?
No, my mother and father both had businesses. So my father was a printer. He died sadly when I was 12. There's a common theme between entrepreneurs in that they lose a parent, quite often a father, at about that age. So I could list you like hundreds of successful entrepreneurs that, weirdly, it's not a good thing to lose your father, but ironically, losing your father in your teens, something drives something on you. You need that. You feel you've got to fend for yourself or something. So I sort of at school used to buy and sell things. You know, my mum used to make me my lunchbox. I used to sell it at 5 o'clock on the bus on the way home, because people were hungry then. And I would do all sorts of things, buy and sell records, LPs, bikes. But, you know, I was a little bit entrepreneurial. But my thing that I think most, if we say entrepreneurs, what does that mean? Businessmen, whatever. People that have got their own business, I think, have had something inside them that sort of clicks and makes them want to. It's not just about making money. It's about maybe trying to prove yourself, and something's gone wrong. So quite often, maybe a child has been told by their teacher that they're a bit useless or something. And obviously not a very good teacher to say that sort of thing. But somewhere along the line, or they've been bullied, or maybe even their parents have said that, you know, they've been demeaned. And I wasn't demeaned, but my brother was highly intelligent, went to Cambridge University and got 6 A levels, and he was 2 years older than me. And having my brother, and I always felt I was average at school. I wasn't quite, you know, the thicko, but I wasn't as good as my brother. So people, because I was 2 years younger than him, expected me to be very similar, but I wasn't. And I sort of, not a sense of failure, but a lack of what people might have expected from you. And I think that clicked and drove me to want to be better than my brother. So I couldn't do it academically for whatever reason. But so I felt, well, I'll make more money. I'll be more successful. And I think other people are driving, you know, it makes me wonder why the big famous entrepreneurs of the world, whether it's Alan Sugar or Richard Branson or something, why they continue. They've got enough money, surely. Why they've achieved, you know, they've had every accolade you could think of. Why do they want to continue? And it's because it's not just about making more money. It's about doing something and believing and achieving and proving yourself. Maybe they're still proving themselves. Maybe I am still want to prove myself to somebody, is maybe to yourself or opposed to some imaginary person or something that you remember from your childhood. So I've got to think that most people have got that in them somewhere, and something clicks. As I said, maybe it was my brother with me. But in the end, you're on your journey and you want to be successful. And of course, make money at the same time. But then when you've made your money, what do you do with it? You know, sometimes you can have, you know, quite a nice lifestyle with a lot less money. So you think, well, I want to be able to do some good with it. How am I going to do good? And, you know, it's quite big subjects to get your head around. There's a lot of late nights thinking about, you know, do I want to you know, help starving people in Africa or disabled people, or do I want to help children, or do I want to eradicate a particular medical disease, or do I want to do something for the environment, or do I want to do something locally? To me, I sort of felt I haven't got a particular angle on any of that. What I feel, I know my local area, Beaconsfield and Buckinghamshire, and I know a bit about business. So my own charity, the Clare Foundation, helps other charities in turn, whatever the charity is, but more locally, small and medium-sized charities, to become more commercial and efficient. Because quite often charities, not I shouldn't really say everyone, but in general terms, they're sometimes not as efficient as a business. So you might have a charity with 20 staff and a business with 20 staff, and the business is quite often more entrepreneurial and more driven and more focused than the charity might be. And if the charity was equal to the business, then they would have more money to give on to their beneficiaries, whatever that might be, rather than being wasted with administration. So I thought, well, I could maybe help charities do that. And that was the original concept and purpose for the Clare Foundation.
And so, Mike, give us some advice as to this. Lots of people watching this that either were doing swimmingly well before the coronavirus and now are struggling, or indeed are running a small charity, social enterprise, community interest company or commercial organisation, and they want to understand how to take the next steps, or they want to understand how to leverage. So you are doing that, you know, very successfully, and are guiding more than 100 charities now in lots of different ways through Clare & Co. to be able to leverage and look after people. So just give us some advice as to, you know, what's important when these people are taking these steps and sitting up late at night working out what to do next. What are the key things they need to be thinking about?
Well, I think it's very important to know exactly just the rationale and the reasoning for what you're doing. So whether it's a business or a charity, it's how long is this going to last? And is everyone on board? Your staff or the people that are working with you, maybe it's your trustees on the board or actual staff. Does everyone understand that journey? So I quite often think about it, it's a bit like a train. You've got to think of an old-fashioned Western train with the engine and it's coal-fired, and the directors and yourself as a chief executive or chairman are feeding the coal on the fire, making the train go faster, and you're really sort of passionate about it, and you're blowing the whistle and you're doing all the stuff. Most of your staff are on the train as passengers. They're not really contributing to the speed, but they're not delaying it. They're just enjoying the ride. They're on the ride with you. You're deciding sort of which way you're going. But there are a few people sometimes, negative people. I know this is a bit not nice stuff.
Yeah.
But there are negative people. So they're always moaners. They're always sort of like, they're always looking on the wrong side. And they're in the guards van at the back, and they're pulling on the brake, and they're trying to slow you down. And they don't believe in what you're doing up at the front in the engine. Most people are with you and are on the train for the ride. You're trying to make it go faster. You sometimes get a few of these negative people pulling on that brake at the end. So when I try and employ, or whenever we've taken staff on, I've always tried to think, are they happy people? So I think most people in this world are either radiators or drains. So radiators are people that are positive and are friendly and are quite glass half full and want to do a good job and are honest.
Yeah.
Radiator people, which are always moaning. They moan about the police, the government, and their next door neighbour. They moan about their dog. They just moan about everything, and they're negative people. And then why they're negative, I don't know, but you just don't want those negative people within your organisation because they will infect the others. And it's quite key. And most people are positive people. There's only a few that are negative, but there are negative people out there. So I think building the right team and making sure that people aren't all the same. So I'm quite often, you know, I'm driven by various things, or money if you want, but some people are driven by by different things, and you just need your top team to be quite a mixture of different colours, so that when you're not all the same and people can challenge you. You know, I hate having yes people that just agree with everything I say, but I don't want people to argue with me. But on the other hand, I do want them to challenge. And then once you've agreed a way forward, you've got to make sure that everyone's agreed and committed to that focus and that direction, and they're on board with it. So what I'm trying to say is about people. So you can't really run a charity or not-for-profit or a business on your own unless you're, I don't know, an artist or something that actually you do something yourself. But you normally need a team. So really the skill, whatever the organizational business, is about choosing the right people, motivating those people, and making sure they're on board. So, you know, what's in your brain as the leader in the middle of the night, is that transferable, and does everyone else understand what you're thinking, so that then you can let them get on with it if they're really focused. And sometimes that the leader doesn't transfer that vision to the troops in the right way. So communication is everything. So it's telling them, but also asking them what they think and getting their opinions, and just sort of getting that on board.
So when I talk to you, Mike, you know, what's really great and refreshing to me is you just share, you're so open to it, and you just share who you are, and, you know, this is how it is, and it's, you make it, you know, straightforward. And that's one of the reasons I'm thinking as you're talking to me is you've been successful as you understand people and you understand the process. Just make sure everybody's on board. There's more complicated stuff, I know there is, because, you know, you don't get to what you've done, you know, without some landmines and jumping over things.
Always. Always. Go on.
Sorry, so I was just going to ask you, my experience of very successful people in business and in walks of life, whatever we call success to be, people who achieve, there's values that sit underneath this. You know, there's a foundation. I always see that, say dreams is a house. You know, and you've got, you know, your people sit on the ground floor, and then the product is the first floor, and then you've got the chimney and you've got a foundation underneath the house, which I call your values.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what's most important to you.
Okay, well, I suppose all those good things that a vicar would say in a church, or a father would say to their children, or a teacher would say. It's about, you know, integrity. It's about honesty. It's about being a decent person, really, and being a decent company. So, you know, you've got to treat the customers fairly and correctly. And, you know, occasionally you get, you know, unhappy customers because you've let them down, but it's how you deal with that and apologize.
Yes.
And you know, it's being, yes, it's about everything in the community, in the society. So you've got to pay taxes. There's no good moaning about it. You're not the Prime Minister. So, you know, someone else is going to make the decision on what taxes you've got to pay. And in the end of the day, don't focus too much moaning about why you're paying those taxes. Someone cleverer than that has been voted in to do it. Just pay the bloody taxes and get on with it. But some people sort of get het up about that. And I sort of think it's being a part of society. We have to help other people and just be fair and reasonable in all your dealings. So, you know, sometimes you've got to be strong and persuasive and negotiate with your suppliers or whatever. But it doesn't mean to say you should be you should never really be unreasonable or unfair, really.
Mike, you talked about getting the right people around you and bringing the right people into your team and your organization. There's a number of people watching this, I'm very sure, that have inherited teams, have come into a role as CEO or senior in the organization, and you have 30 people or 300 people, and you know there's some lovely people there, and the culture's not quite right, and you know there's too many people pulling on that brake. How do you? What's your advice, Mike? When, or even worse, may I say, that there's people dying you know, around you and you're running a charity and it's really serious.
Well, yeah, I agree that there are, and that quite
What's
often.
your advice there?
Well, sometimes really nice people are maybe not right for the business, but just because they're not stealing your pencils out of your stationery cupboard and they're honest and they turn up for work, doesn't mean that they're right for the business, because you know, they're nice people. And quite often your heart tells you, oh, they're nice people. He's got a mortgage and he's got children. But if he's not actually doing his job correctly, or he's not being part of the team in the right way, or whatever, then that's just as much as a problem as someone nicking some pencils out your stationery cupboard. It's a different sort of problem, but you have to have people that are sort of on board and efficient. So what they've got to be is achievers. So if they're in the finance department, you know, they've got to know what they're doing and that they've got to be focused on that. And, you know, or whatever department or whatever they're running or whatever individual job that person's doing. So, yeah, if you've got bad apples or you've got someone that you've inherited, someone that isn't right, quite often they're feeling the same. It's very unusual that you feel that person is a square peg in a round hole and they're feeling happy. That's very unusual. It would most likely, if you feel they're not right, they're somehow feeling awkward and not right. And in the end, it's just you getting out on the table and saying, look, you know, how are you feeling about things? I very much believe in appraisals where you flush some of these things out at an early stage. Some people you wouldn't believe what some people have said at appraisals. Well, you sent, you know, some girl 2 desks along, you sent her a birthday card and I didn't get a birthday card. And you think, what? And it's like, this was 6 months ago. But they've been harbouring this sort of resentment. They think you don't like them because you forgot their birthday or something like that. So, but in the end, unless you have an appraisal and flush all that sort of thing out, some people like to sit next to the window because they like fresh air. Some people like to be near a radiator. Some people care about their job title because their title means a lot to them because they want to tell their granny that they're the so-and-so manager. And some people care about flexi hours because they've got kids and they want to be able to not be into too much of a routine and work longer hours then and shorter hours then. Some people don't care about that. They care about the security of your business because they've been made redundant 2 or 3 times. So they're ultra scared that they're going to be made redundant again because the company's going to go bust. But everyone is driven by slightly different things. So I always believe it's sort of know your member of staff, understand what makes them tick, what's important to them, and it's not the same to everyone. And then it's that manager, the manager of that person, his job to motivate them and to keep not just with money, but to do little things matter, you know, like birthday cards or making sure there's a fruit bowl available in reception or, you know, doing silly things, a barbecue on a Friday evening, not in coronavirus, but, you know, silly things that don't mean a lot, make them feel part of the team. And communication, I used to do like just a letter, I called it Mike's monthly memo. And, you know, it was just MMM. And I wouldn't know what to say some months, but I do just want to tell them, oh, we're doing this, or we're doing that, or this is a new policy, or we're doing this, it's a new range of bunk beds, and, oh, we're opened a new store. And so then everyone sort of feels, oh, right. And do you know what's good? Is that sort of thing doesn't just go to the employee, they take it home. So we made sure we used to send it physically, not electronically, physically in their pay slip. And it was Mike's monthly memo. So it would say things and it would say, thank you to everyone for all your hard work because we've achieved this. And well done, we've hit this target. And they would say that. And this 1-page Mike's monthly memo would then be read by that person's partner or whoever they live with. And they would think, oh, it's a nice company. Oh, and you know, I'm not going to talk about confidential things, but it is about communication and it's about thanking people publicly and privately. So it's no good saying well done to someone whispering it. They want everyone to know that you said thank you. And, you know, it's all in the business books. It's all normal stuff. Some of these things we all know, we just don't do.
And so that's an interesting point to me that runs deep for me because there's obviously our makeup, our genetics, our ecology, our environment. There's so many things that make us who we are. And I'm quite a deep bunny and trying to understand a lot about our psychology and how we tick. It's fascinating to me that there is lots of ingredients inside you that you make it, and it's not simple, but you follow these steps, and achievement is a science, right? So there's steps, but there's also a place of fulfillment that you look after people. And I'm interested also in what made you and what still makes you work hard and do that extra 5% and really look after people. What is it in you that we can model and learn from that makes you, when you really don't want to do it, is it your dad or is it your mom or is it what that from your childhood? Is there something that you say, I'm not giving up, I'm not having it? What is
I think
that?
it's determination. Originally, it's that everything was on the line. So when I started originally, and I started all those little businesses in my 20s that I never really committed to, and I still had a job and I'd worked my way up to be an area manager. The reason they didn't work is because I'd just get a bit fed up and I'd do something else because I knew I was getting a salary coming in. But when I properly committed, I resigned from my job and I started the sofa bed business. And if that didn't work, I was going to lose my house. I was going to lose everything. And my wife was pregnant with our first child. And failure was not an option. It just couldn't, because I'd put everything on the line. Now, that's a risky strategy. And I shouldn't be saying to people, oh, you've got to put everything on the line, make it really like absolutely critical. But if you do that, it does get you up at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning to do some paperwork and to make sure. And it's that being driven. And then once when it's not so critical then, and you're over the dodgy stage, it's just about wanting to do things right, really. And, you know, I if anything, I've been called all sorts of things, but workaholic and doing too much is also a problem. So for the people that I live with, sometimes I'm always in my office. What am I doing on VE day? Talking to you. Yeah. I've been in my office most of this morning, but I'm not going to this afternoon. I'm going to go on a long bike ride and I'm going to chill out a bit this afternoon. But getting that balance right, but not just for yourself, but also for the people that you live with and that you love, because otherwise you're very just focused on one thing, and they don't quite get that. Life is all about a balance, isn't it?
Yes. And so, Mike, who are the people that have inspired, 2 questions, if I may. Who are the 2 or 3 people that have inspired you most in your career or in your life?
Yeah.
And what is it that's made them? I know everybody's got special qualities in them, but 2 or 3 people that have most inspired you in the world, and what is it about them that's been magical?
To me, I had 2 sort of heroes, if you want, I tried to emulate. And one was a guy called Phil Harris that used to run Carpet Right. His son sort of runs it now. It's Tappy or something. But it's Carpet Right. And I used to work for him when I was in my 20s. And he had various furniture stores called Hardy's and things like that. And he was my hero. Then I get to meet him. And another guy was Graham Kirkham, who runs DFS. So selling carpets and selling sofas are very similar to selling beds. And I used to look at them. They'd be hugely successful, both lords now. And I used to think, I want to be like them. And I would try and look at them. Phil Harris has now written an autobiography, which is an interesting read. And I sort of know them. I get Christmas cards from them. I'm sort of not best friends with them, but they were inspirational to me in making me believe that this is all achievable. They've done it with carpets and sofas. I could do it with beds. It's all sort of like, I've only got to sort of do roughly what they're doing, but in my own way. But of course, you know, there's lots of people who admire. I admire the Queen hugely. You know, I admire lots of people that do good in this world, you know. And
so when you look at charitable organizations, you mentioned earlier about, you know, the sense that how can we become more efficient? You know, sometimes charities aren't quite as efficient. There's 20 people in a charity and 20 people in a business, and you know, they're not as efficient. What do we need to do if we're running a non-for-profit? And I know that, you know, you've got hundreds of charities around you that the guys are amazing and the girls, and they're doing great. But what would your advice be? How can we make something more efficient, whether it's a charity or a business? What are the 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you have for people out there that we need to become more efficient with?
So if you're a charity or a business, it's not doing the same thing as someone else.
Right.
Have you got your own take on it and your own
Right.
personality as a business
Right.
or a charity that gets to people, so people can remember it. So
Yes.
you know, it's not just about a logo and colours, but is what you do, does it resonate with whoever your customers are, or
Yes.
who are going to give money to you, and do they get it? Is it have you got a simple strap line, you know, elevator pitch type thing that you can do? So I suppose efficiency is just making sure that the money you get in, most of it goes out to who you want it to go to. So
Yeah.
in businesses, that's the shareholders, it's dividends or something. In a charity, it goes out as donations or whatever to the beneficiaries, whether they're children or the environment or whatever you're trying to do. And you don't want in a lot of that in the middle sandwiched with a load of administration costs. So, you know, is it necessary to have that report? I used to have all sorts of reports, really clever, all color-coded, and then you file them, who looks at them, and do you make a different decision because that report was written? You know, is it really, what is critical? And sometimes people end up doing things. People have got a job because that was always their job, and we've always had to do that. And is it, sometimes you just got to think outside the box and say, let's start again. And imagine, like, this, I think coronavirus will sort a lot of people out. You know, do we all need to work in offices? Maybe we should all work. Maybe that's better. And make people reevaluate and say, well, actually, we've survived without X, Y, Z or whatever. Some people just do it. I think there's too much of this, not health and safety, but there's too much bureaucracy and regulation. And people get tied up in it, and they have whole departments of people trying to worry that they're not going to be sued about this, that, and the other. But if deep down you're a good person and you're not meaning to be dishonest,
you'd be right.
You're sort of all right. There's always some risk. If you drive down the road, you might have a car accident. But in the end, you can't spend all your life as a charity or business worried about. So we have this thing with charities where, you know, it's actually compliance and are we doing the right thing? But yeah, there needs to be some time looking at that, but not so much time that the administration of the trustees is too much on that side. It's actually just rolling your sleeves up and understanding, is there a new way of doing something that's quicker or better or faster or goes through to the bottom line?
And my you know, a question that comes to me, which, because you've now taken this focus of your small businesses and when you were still working, and then with Dreams, and now you know, in Buckinghamshire you're doing so much, but you know, and a lot of the people that you're helping are trying to sort out a problem. You know, 100 different charities or more, all working at different levels, different things in the world. When you look at all the problems, you mentioned a couple of times the coronavirus pandemic that we're sitting in with right now. What do you think are the biggest problems? So if I paint a picture of, you know, even the youngsters who are about to start their career, and you look at the future generation, what do you think are the biggest problems right now, and how do you think we should manage or overcome them?
You know, I haven't really thought about it, but I've just been talking about bureaucracy, and I think a lot of that is getting bogged down in compliance and trying to do things to seem it's the right thing, to have a meeting for the sake of a meeting when they didn't really need a meeting. You know, it used to be just JFDI, just flipping do it, you know, and sometimes you know, if you make a mistake, then okay, you can rectify it. But if you don't make a decision because you're pontificating about shall we, shan't we, and you're not making a decision, then you're not going anywhere. I think it's just being positive, being a radiator, not a drain, mixing with the right people and being happy. You know, we've got one of the things that the Clare Foundation are now trying to do is make Buckinghamshire the happiest county in the UK. So the first thing we talk about, well, what is happiness? It's not about having the most amount of money. It's not about this. It's why, you know, is it lonely people? Is it someone that's been bullied at school? Is it this? Is it what is it? Why are some people unhappy? Why does someone eventually, there's quite a high suicide rate? What is it? Why are people unhappy? So we're trying to sort of say, well, hang on, life's not so bad. You only get one life. You know, why is it that drives people, winds people up? So we're trying to sort of say, let's try and address happiness. It's a massive subject.
Yeah, it's
We
huge.
could make Buckinghamshire the happiest county in the UK, and then we can replicate that in the other counties in the UK, and then we could have a big worldwide thing. Happiness is just stop worrying about everything too much.
Yeah, no, it's great. Mike, thank you so much. It's great. Yeah, it's great talking to you. It really is, and it really strikes me. It gives me a lot of clarity, because I'm one of those people that, and I'm deeply passionate, and thinking about so many things. And I think from a business perspective, a charity perspective, and I know it's not easy, and people out there have challenges and problems, but you've given us 5 or 6 things that when you look at it, just work hard, be good to people, be honest, be open, do a good job, stay motivated, be a radiator, look after people around you, communicate well. It's those things that make
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you so much, my friend.
No, that's
really
okay.
great to talk to you.